what it is, guys. Today we're doing a install review on the Kemimoto rear sets for the FZ-09. The kind folks at Kemimoto contacted me and said, hey, would you like to review this product for us? And I said, hell yes, because I do have a set of Woodcraft clip-ons that drop the front about 1.5 inches. So I think this would really complement things. What this rear set actually allows you to do is get that more super sport position. So lift your leg up and back a little bit more than the factory ones do. Of course, you can also use these for other purposes, like they can actually go down more, forward more if you like to. Just completely adjustable for where you want your feet. Can be beneficial to people with long legs as well. Other than racing purposes of when you're trying to lean the bike over so you don't scrape the FZ-09 pegs, which are notorious for scraping really early. But the bike is capable supposedly of lean angles equivalent to an R6 until you start, scraping the pegs basically. What I'm showing you guys here is all the hardware that comes in this kit. This is the only documentation that you get for instructions and exploded view of the actual rear sets. First part of this video, we're going to talk about the actual assembly of these guys, and then we're going to talk about the installation, and then in a second video, we'll talk about how they actually feel. But basically, what I'm doing here is I'm disassembling these pieces right now because I'm going to blue Loctite them so they don't actually shake free and rattle free when on the bike. Really important when you have a motorcycle to blue Loctite your stuff, because motorcycles just vibrate naturally and you don't want to just lose pieces while you're riding. This is the actual clutch side of the rear set that we're working on right now. One of the things that I will comment on as we're doing this assembly here is that it's not difficult. You may seem like this video is going to be long even in fast forward, but really all you need to do is give yourself time to do this install. One of the biggest hurdles that people run into on these bikes for the rear sets is that there is a really long bolt that passes all the way through the frame and the rear swing arm. A lot of other bikes, they don't actually do that. Usually it's just two bolts that attach on each side. On this bike, yes, you do kind of have to take this really long bolt out of there, which people find daunting, but it's not. I'm going to show you how to do it with really just a car jack, and that's all you need to do. What I'm assembling here is the front clutch lever. This actually attaches to your bike on the engine case, so there's 3 pieces to this. Don't let that throw you off that there's 3 pieces of this assembly when your stock unit is only 2. Good thing to look out for is just keep referencing back to what your stock rear sets look like, and then where these pieces need to go. You'll figure it out basically. It's not hard to do. It just, again, takes time. That's the number one thing. As we're taking this part apart, this is the actual brake side of it. This is the more complicated side, is the brake side, because there is a master cylinder brace in the rear, and then there are sensors that detect the rear brake light when you actually push down on the peg. You see that one piece sticking out there, that long bolt. That's what that actually does. In my installation, I'm not actually going to use that bolt. I found it to be kind of, to be honest, a pain in the ass. And I forego it because I'm never going to just use the rear brake by itself. I'm always going to use like 80-90% the front brake first before applying like 10 or 20% to the rear. That's just the way I ride. Some of you guys may be different. You may do trail braking where you need that rear brake and that's all you're using. I just honestly do not do that at all. So there's a bracketry for it. I mean, it's set up to do it. I just never got around to actually doing it. This part that I'm hooking on here, I'm not blue Loctiting because that's adjustable. I can go up, down, left, right where I actually want my foot to be. So we'll figure that out once I actually get on the bike and ride it and how much I want to adjust for it. Rear pegs, also there's like 2 holes that you can put in there in the back or forward position. Super adjustable, like I said. exactly how you want to ride. So here's that big bolt right there. I'm loosening that nut on the one side. That right there is what intimidates everyone, because it goes all the way through the other side of the bike, and when you take it off, people are intimidated because your bike would just like basically break apart in two pieces with that out of there. But yeah, it's not that bad. I'm going to show you guys how to actually do it. So there's a floor jack right there. You guys see that I'm using a floor jack as I'm loosening all the bolts on the rear sets. There's like 2 on each side. That floor jack is basically going to support everything. It's going to support the frame of the bike. It's going to support the rear swing arm. And then we're going to put a piece to actually hold everything in place. Another bolt, basically. What I'm doing here is taking everything off of the bike. I mean, really, on this brake side, just freaking take everything off. It will make your life a lot easier. Don't try to save anything. Don't try to work around stuff. Just take everything off to remove that rear brake master cylinder that you can't see, but it's behind that plate right there. So we've just disconnected this. We're using the floor jack. We're jacking it up behind the oil filter or the oil pan. Do not jack on the oil pan because that's really soft. And all we need to do is just make it so that rear wheel is actually movable, that you guys saw me do. What that is going to allow is you to actually move the rear swing arm and the frame and get everything back into alignment when you're installing everything again. Once again, what I'm doing here is disconnecting the brake side. So many more springs and bolts holding this thing together. Just take your time doing it. It's not hard. But you're gonna want to do this. Like, you're gonna want to give yourself like 2-3 hours to do this. Do not try to do this like an hour before you go on your ride, because you will just get completely frustrated. Take everything off that you need to take off that's gonna get in the way. Same thing on the other side. We're removing this bottom bolt here that's gonna hold that rear set on, and then that's gonna pop right off. And that's my biggest tip that I can give to you guys on this install, is to do that. There's that main bolt right there. We're gonna punch that out with a hammer, and this tool that I actually got. This is basically this rod, the same exact size. I'll go ahead and link you guys below to Home Depot where you can buy this. That rod is basically holding the bike frame and the rear swing arm together. As I'm pulling this factory unit out, it's going to hold everything in place so you can put it back in really easily, and basically so your bike doesn't fall apart into 2 pieces. Go ahead, disconnect the rear sets, and I'm disconnecting this shaft right there. Now I'm going to do this. So the shifter is going to connect on the front piece of the engine side cover right here. There's 2 bolts that it's going to connect on. Makes it look pretty cool. That 3 pieces, kind of like a Euro look. However, what you're going to notice is as I'm taking these bolts off, it's going to start leaking oil. I didn't really expect it to do that because there's like 8 bolts or something holding this on, but really it's not tight enough. Oil's going to leak out, so you're going to need to do like a quickie swap back over when you're actually installing this piece. One thing to note, do not tighten these up a lot. They only need like 7 or 10 foot-pounds of pressure. Do a quickie swap, put it back in there, everything stops leaking. Tighten it up, and then just give it a tiny quarter turn, and that should be enough. Do not do any more than that. So that shifter part's there. The rear set is actually in. I'm putting the rod back in right now, and I'm going to punch it back through the bike. You're going to lift up on your rear wheel and just wiggle everything around so it fits through. I cut that video right there. You saw that I put that through. It doesn't go in that easily. I took about probably 5 minutes or so of getting it right to wiggle it back in there, but you can do it. It's just a bunch of jimmying to get it back in there. Once you do that, reconnect all the other bolts. Reconnect the shift lever right here. As I'm doing this, as I'm adjusting it, I'm finding that it's being like a little bit low to where I want it to be. So go ahead and just adjust it to where your foot is comfortable for that shift lever and your rear heel to be. On this other side, a collar popped out. Make sure that collar goes back in and that bushing goes back in to secure that big bolt that is going through the entire side of the bike. And then you can start reassembling things. one of the things that you have to take off, again, on the brake side, there's so much stuff on the brake side, but don't worry about it. Just take your time when you're actually doing this. That is the actual actuator, that eye bolt right there. The pressure that you put down is going to actuate the actual rear brake. I'm going to go ahead and right now and just put that mounting bracket on for the rear set just to hold it into place. And I am trying to retain that rear brake light switch right there that you guys see, but I just kind of gave up like partial way through it. I'm sure you can actually do it. Some of you guys that are more patient than me can get that thing hooked up, but again, it's not a big deal for me to actually not have that brake light hooked up because I'm never going to use that rear brake just by itself. Hardly ever use the rear brake, to be completely honest with you guys. So I'm taking all the bracketry off and I'm just hooking it up to what's available there to make sure nothing rattles free. Hooking up the heel guard right here, that goes into the rear brake master cylinder, and just keep continuing to tighten everything down and hook everything up. I mean, by this point you will be really familiar with how all these pieces work. I understand it may be kind of complicated for you guys in the video that you're watching this, but I promise if you give yourself, again, I keep saying time, if you give yourself time, you'll figure this out, because it's really simple how to actually go ahead and put it together. You just have to think a tiny little bit while you're actually doing this. So rear set's getting mounted back onto the bike right now. There's really not much work after this that I'm going to be showing you guys. Pegs on there, everything's on there. I'm going to go ahead and cinch this nut right down. You can torque it to whatever spec is in the book. Jump on the bike, give it a feel, put your feet on it, see how it feels where you actually want it positioned, and then you can again move the rear sets up, down, left, or right by removing just 2 bolts on each side. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I showed you guys it's not intimidating to install. Next video, I'll be giving you my actual review. So until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later. Peace.